There are press conferences, and then there are moments that reveal the truth about power, leadership, and the future of a country. What happened in Johannesburg wasn't a simple Q&A session. It wasn't a political back and forth or a scripted showcase of talking points. It was a moment where you could see, in real time, the difference between someone chasing headlines and someone shaping history. When Mark Carney walked into that G20 press room, no one expected what was about to unfold. Cameras were rolling, reporters were ready, and most of them thought they already knew the story they wanted to extract. They tried to drag him into the same old controversies, the same tired questions, the same obsession with drama. But what they got instead was a masterclass in calm authority. Carney didn't snap. He didn't lose his patience. He didn't get defensive. He did something far more powerful. He made it clear that Canada is not a side character in America's drama anymore. And as he spoke, something shifted, not just in that room, but in the way the world sees Canada. This wasn't a press conference. This was a declaration that the world is changing, and Canada is stepping into a new role. The press expected a predictable session. Light questions, safe answers, maybe a few polite remarks about cooperation and global partnerships. But the moment Carney sat down, the room immediately revealed what it was really there for. The first question wasn't about the G20. It wasn't about global trade, new alliances, or Canada's growing influence. It was about Donald Trump. A reporter asked whether Trump had returned Carney's calls or accepted his apology. It was the kind of question designed to create a headline, not uncover a truth. Carney could have reacted emotionally, but he chose something much more strategic. He confirmed the basics calmly, then delivered the line that wiped the question off the table. "I've been busy." That short sentence did more than answer the question. It changed the energy of the room. It told reporters exactly where Canada stands. No desperation, no insecurity, no waiting for approval from Washington. A prime minister who speaks from a position of purpose, not politicking, not chasing validation. The press wasn't ready for a leader who wouldn't play into their preferred storyline. Reporters tried again. A second Trump question, this time wrapped in concerns about Canada's diversification away from the US. Carney didn't take the bait. Instead, he reminded them that Canada is busy doing real work. The country just passed a budget set to unlock $1 trillion of investment. New trade agreements have been launched. Massive deals have been secured. The Canadian economy is entering a period of momentum rarely seen before. While reporters repeated the same sensational angle, Carney emphasized that Canada's agenda is not centered on a single politician's phone calls. He refused to let the story be about Trump. Instead, he showcased that Canada has moved on to bigger things, actual policy, actual growth, actual alliances. The reporters came in thinking they'd steer the conversation. Carney quietly showed them they were asking the wrong questions. It wasn't about who dialed whom. It was about what Canada was building while others chased drama. And the press found itself forced to adapt because the Prime Minister wasn't playing the media game they expected. A third Trump-focused question appeared. This time, Carney ended it entirely. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't get frustrated. He simply removed the oxygen from the storyline. He called the entire Trump issue a detail, not a crisis, not a priority, a detail. For decades, Canadian leaders have been defined by the US. The American relationship has shaped our politics, our trade, even our media narratives. But for the first time in a generation, a prime minister effectively said, "We're not waiting for America. I'll speak to him when it matters." It was a subtle but seismic shift. It was a direct statement that Canada isn't hanging on every move south of the border. Carney wasn't dismissing the importance of the US. He was dismissing the childish obsession with gossip over governance. He was showing that the press had come with noise, but he was bringing substance. Canada's future won't be dictated by who calls first. And the reporters weren't prepared for how decisively Carney would end the cycle of small questions trying to overshadow big decisions. After shutting down the noise, Carney took the room somewhere completely different, the global arena. He laid out how the balance of power in the world is shifting. For years, the global economy revolved around a handful of dominant nations, but that era is fading. Technology, energy, emerging economies, and new alliances are redefining the map. 3/4 of the world's population and 2/3 of global GDP were represented at the G20, even without the United States formally participating. The world no longer stops when one country skips the meeting. The future belongs to nations that adapt, connect, and innovate. Carney explained that Canada doesn't just want to survive this transition. It wants to prosper under it. That means building ties with rising economies, embracing new regions, and positioning Canada as a middle power with leverage across continents. This is not passive participation. This is strategic positioning. The reporters had been obsessed with one relationship. Carney reminded them that Canada is cultivating dozens. This is where Carney unveiled the real story behind Canada's strategy. While the US doubles down on isolation, Canada is deepening its connections across the world. One of the biggest moves? Launching discussions to integrate the CPTPP with the European Union. Two enormous trading blocs, over 1 billion people, potentially linked by a single corridor, with Canada right at the center. Carney also discussed Canada's new foothold in Africa, including opening a strategic office in Cape Town, an entry point into one of the fastest-growing regions on the planet. This isn't symbolic diplomacy, it's infrastructure, it's economic positioning. It's a clear sign that Canada refuses to rely on one market again. He then shifted to critical minerals, the backbone of clean tech, EVs, and AI. Canada is positioning itself as a global supplier, not a follower. While other nations scramble to secure supply chains, Canada is locking in partnerships early, shaping the technological future instead of reacting to it. The press arrived expecting Trump drama. They instead got a country quietly constructing a new trade architecture. No one in that Johannesburg press room was ready for the number Mark Carney was about to reveal. Reporters came armed with Trump questions, political angles, and recycled narratives. But what Carney delivered was something none of them expected. A financial earthquake that instantly rewired the conversation. With a calm voice and matter-of-fact confidence, he announced that the United Arab Emirates would be investing $70 billion into Canada. Not promises, not exploratory talks. A confirmed, historic commitment. This wasn't a normal trade deal. This was one of the largest foreign direct investments in Canadian history, and Carney dropped it with the same tone someone uses when reading the weather. The UAE wasn't offering charity. They weren't looking for symbolic partnerships. They were placing a massive, strategic bet on Canada's long-term strength, stability, and vision. Carney explained how this deal came together, not through luck, but through deliberate diplomacy. He personally met with top CEOs, sovereign wealth fund leaders, and energy giants in the Emirates. He didn't walk in asking for favors. He walked in with a plan, a strategy, and a vision for Canada's next decade. The UAE responded with the ultimate vote of confidence. A $70 billion commitment spanning energy, agriculture, clean tech, artificial intelligence, and future-driven industries. For years, analysts have said Canada needed to diversify its investment partners. Carney didn't just diversify, he delivered a global-scale breakthrough. And the message behind this investment was unmistakable. In a time when major powers are struggling with instability, polarization, and economic uncertainty, the UAE chose Canada. They chose predictability. They chose strategic leadership. The reporters who came expecting political drama instead watched their headlines evaporate. Because once a nation secures a deal of this magnitude, the whole world takes notice. And in that moment, Canada proved it wasn't just talking about leadership. It was earning it. What came after the UAE bombshell was the moment everyone realized Canada's rise wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. Carney didn't pause. He didn't exaggerate. He simply began listing Canada's new global agreements, one after another, like a country that had quietly spent 6 months building an international power base while the world wasn't paying attention. He started with Sweden, a new partnership focused on innovation, trade, and advanced research. Then Germany, a critical minerals agreement that ties Canada directly into Europe's clean tech future. Not symbolic gestures, but long-term commitments that secure Canada's role in industries other nations are still scrambling to enter. From there, he turned to the European Union, revealing fresh cooperation on trade and defense. Chile joined the list with a new technology partnership. Indonesia signed an economic deal. ASEAN, a massive economic bloc representing 20% of global GDP, accelerated its talks with Canada toward a full free trade agreement. Carney even confirmed new negotiations with Thailand and the Philippines, strengthening Canada's access to the fastest-growing region in the world. This wasn't Canada reaching for opportunities. This was the world reaching toward Canada. It became clear that Canada's strength is no longer tied to a single trading partner. 12 major agreements across 4 continents in less than half a year. A diversification strategy so broad, so deliberate, and so forward-looking that reporters in the room could hardly process the scale. Each deal strengthened Canada's position in a different arena: minerals, technology, food security, innovation, defense, and next-generation industries. Taken together, they formed a global web, a network of influence and opportunity unlike anything Canada has built in decades. Carney wasn't announcing Canada's rise. He was revealing a rise already in motion. By the time Carney stepped away from the podium, the room wasn't thinking about Trump. They weren't thinking about phone calls, apologies, or media narratives. They were thinking about something far more consequential. The realization that the man standing before them wasn't just leading Canada through the moment. He was designing Canada's future. Carney didn't posture, brag, or try to manufacture a dramatic moment. The drama came from the weight of what he had laid out. A Canada that no longer acts like a middle power waiting for permission, but a nation shaping its own path through intelligence, diplomacy, and long-term vision. Every deal he mentioned, every alliance he described, every investment he secured pointed toward one undeniable truth. This was not reactive leadership. This was strategic architecture. For years, Canada has been cast as polite, cautious, predictable, a country that supported the global order but rarely influenced it. Carney shattered that image without raising his voice. He presented a Canada that diversifies its power, deepens its alliances, and moves independently when necessary. Not in defiance, but in confidence. The world doesn't want a Canada that waits. It wants a Canada that leads. He didn't say it outright, but the message was unmistakable. Canada has stepped into a new identity: resilient, connected, globally relevant. A nation no longer defined by one neighbor, but by a network of partnerships that span continents and industries. A nation attracting investment not because it's safe, but because it's strategic. When Carney walked out of that room, he didn't leave as the Prime Minister reporters expected. He left as the architect of a new global chapter for Canada, a chapter written with clarity, purpose, and ambition. And everyone watching knew they had just witnessed the beginning of something far bigger than a press conference.